If you're not super involved in the gaming world, you might not have heard about the unmitigated catastrophe that is Concord.
This game is almost definitely the biggest flop in gaming history.
So Concord's an online team-based first-person shooter developed by Firewalk Studios, which was acquired by Sony last year. The game actually launched on August 23rd, but like pretty much every side project I ever announced, they then promptly unlaunched it, with Sony announcing that the game will be taken completely offline this Friday, September 6th, and explaining, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game in our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended. While we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC. Also, to explain, when they say that it didn't land the way they intended, they mean that the game sold just 25,000 copies across both platforms. Right, in financial terms, that means about $1 million in revenue. And Steam charts show that the game peaked at just under 700 concurrent players just after launch. Which, in case you don't understand just how horrible that is. One, even Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which was also a notorious flop, still managed to get 13,000 concurrent players. Two, the under 700 number we're talking about were peak numbers. Like if you look right now, they only have 40 or 50 people concurrently playing Concord. And three, a AAA title as ambitious as Concord should have reached a player count in the hundreds of thousands, if not past a million. Right, not only did this game cost likely tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to make, it took 6 to 8 years. It was a brand new IP that was supposed to grow into a staple franchise with its own ever-expanding universe and cast of characters. I mean, just a week before launch, you had the game director hyping up major content drops planned for October and January. I mean, Concord was even supposed to get its own episode on Amazon's upcoming anthology series called Secret Level, where each entry is based on a different video game IP. So also there, it's unclear if they're gonna scrap that episode before its December release date, because now it's based on a game that practically doesn't exist. And so, obviously with this, the flop came as a shock to the game developers, but even people who expected this game to flop didn't realize it would flop this hard.
I am beyond surprised because I thought they'd at least ride this as much as they could, like trying to update the game, like desperately trying to get some players to buy into it. Like I thought this would go at least 6 months, like a full season or something of the game, but it didn't even make it like a full 2 weeks.
I've never seen a live service, AAA live service, published by such a high-profile publisher die this fast.
Right, and so all of this, it raises the question of, well, what the fuck happened? Right, because if you looked at just the critics' reviews, you wouldn't have expected it to perform so poorly. I mean, they weren't great, they weren't even good, but they weren't completely awful. On Metacritic, it had a 62 out of 100, with a general consensus being that although the gameplay was fine, it just didn't bring anything new or interesting to the table that you couldn't already find in Overwatch, Valorant, or Destiny 2, with some saying IGN maybe put it best.
Grab a copy of Overwatch off some dusty GameStop shelf and rub it under the musky armpit of the Guardians of the Galaxy's Peter Quill, and you might have something close to the feeling of Concord.
But then, if you look at the user ratings, the game score plummets to an embarrassing 1.8 out of 10, with some just absolutely shitting all over Concord's petrified face.
Because it was a $40 game that was a watered-down, worse version of all of its free counterparts that it was trying to suckle from the teats of.
It was a generic slop hero shooter with character design that probably rivaled that of my actual doodles in kindergarten.
Well, no, also with this, if you venture over into the more political side of reactions, you have some people claiming Concord was an example of go woke, go broke, with a number of people pointing to the game's inclusion of pronouns and multicultural characters. But really, most people seem to agree that it was just the wrong game at the wrong time with mediocre content.
Like, you can't look at a game like Deadlock that has tons of representation, and you can't look at a game like Overwatch that's somehow more woke than Concord ever could hope to be, and then be like, the reason why Concord failed is because it was woke.
But, with all that said, really the only question left is, will Sony try to salvage this game at all, or are they gonna just try to move on and forget about this? Because some have taken the company's promise to, quote, explore options, including those that will better reach our players, as maybe a hint that it could make Concord free to play. And there you even have outlets like Forbes saying Sony should do that even without a monetization plan in place, writing, no, the game is not remotely designed for a flip to free to play, given that the whole point was a bunch of free earned stuff in exchange for the $40 price point. But right now, that doesn't matter. It needs players fast. Though this, standing in the face of others that think there's no way to salvage this.
Free to play will not save the game. People just don't want anything that the game has to offer. The game doesn't really look like it plays well. The characters look stupid. I think high triple-digit amount of people are going to be absolutely f***ing removed because of this.
But for now, we'll have to wait to see how this plays out. And so if you're of the few several thousand that got the game, I'd love to know your thoughts. But also, I'd love to hear from you if you avoided this game. What was the reason why? I'd love to hear from you, because I mean, this game wasn't even remotely on my radar.